back to the No Score Review Show, where we have in-depth critique and nuanced discussion of some of the latest movies, video games, and television. I am your host, Nick Green, and today we are talking about Killers of the Flower Moon, Martin Scorsese's latest epic, his latest flick to hit
Sorry.
the theaters.
Don't leave that in.
Leave what in? I don't know what you're talking about, Matt. Matt Schmidt is joining me on the show again today.
Sorry.
Welcome back to the show, Matt.
Hi. Glad to be here. This is not sponsored by PBR.
Not yet, anyway. We'll see how things are after this review.
Not yet. We'll see.
But yeah, the first little bit of this review will be spoiler free, so worry not about any explicit plot details or anything. First off, we'll just kind of go into our expectations for the film before we went and saw it, and then just our general thoughts overall. There will be like an explicit spoiler warning once we want to deep dive into everything. So yeah, Matt, want to kick things off with your general thoughts on Killers?
My general thoughts. Well, I liked it a lot. I mean, I had high expectations going into it, like everybody else, I'm sure. But I feel like at the same time, it was different enough from what I thought it would be, I guess, that it was still surprising in a way, or refreshing at least.
Right.
And I didn't really feel the runtime. I was, when it was like the last scene, and it clicked in my head probably later than it should have, that like, oh, we're wrapping up now. Right. I was like, it's done already? Yeah. I thought we still had some mileage to go out of this. I thought we were at like 2.5 hours when that happened, and we had more time to go. So it just goes to show, I in my opinion, how good the editing was in that movie that made it such a long movie feel like it wasn't as long.
Right. Yeah, I would
What
agree.
About you?
Like, honestly, because I went and saw it in IMAX, and the IMAX theater in our vicinity has terrible seating. And I think I've told a few people... That's why
I went to the VIP for this one.
Yeah. It's a stunning movie visually, but I don't know that... I mean, especially for like our IMAX theaters here, I don't know that it could have been any less impactful if I just went to regular seating, or even like the recline seating in VIP or whatever.
Was it in the full aspect ratio for the whole thing, like Oppenheimer was?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so anyway. I'm not as like up on my aspect ratios, so I don't...
Well, I mean, it wasn't noticeably squishing down into like super widescreen at chunks. Okay.
But yeah, what I've been telling a few people lately is the seating arrangement in the IMAX theater I was in did more to make me feel those 3.5 hours than the film itself did.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
Were you at the Silver City in Richmond? Is that the one? Yeah. I think the Langley one is the same too. I don't think they're
much better. Yeah. Unfortunately,
they're probably built around the same time, because they're both like the super big, extravagant buildings with shit all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that one and the Coquitlam one, I think, also is pretty...
Metrotown's kind of like that. They've got like sculptures and stuff hanging around.
But yeah, I would say the pacing of it felt really good overall. The writing and editing definitely made sure of that. I've talked with you, Matt, about this a few times, and I'm very much learning this more as I have started to review movies and just media in general. Specifically with movies, though, is like you find certain types of films, or just certain films, take longer to absorb and like need some like ruminating on, because when I actually like wrote my Letterboxd review, I think that was very, very much a rushed version of my thoughts of that. Because like the more I read other people's takes on it now, and the more I sit with it like days after seeing it, the more and more I come to realize just how powerful a film this was, and just how well crafted and well handled the movie as a whole was, just in every sense of the term. Um, and yeah, it's a very, like, one of the most profound movies I've seen this year. And I think that's something I'm learning. This movie has shown me that I need to kind of recognize more and be okay with just kind of letting it sit with me a little bit more before deciding to kind of establish my thoughts on. And I mean, like, thoughts and feelings towards media and art is always changing and always flowing. So like, it's not like it'll be a definitive thing. This is what I think, and that's said and done.
Yeah, of course.
Because like, even with this example right now, like, I put some thoughts and feelings I had on the movie right after seeing it, and then now obviously I'm being able to process it a little bit more. But yeah, this was just a very interesting kind of step back and be like, okay, yeah, this film is showing me, like, how different the review process can be for different types of movies and just media and art in general. So
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of stuff where the good qualities of, particularly with films or with music in a lot of cases, is a lot of times with the grander and maybe more subtle kinds of movies like this, as opposed to an action movie or a comedy or something, the good parts of it aren't necessarily apparent immediately when you watch it, because they
mhm,
don't it's not like throwing stuff at you where it's like, hey,
right,
look at me, look at this. um, it it definitely does tend to take a little bit longer to let these things sort of sink in, or like require multiple viewings, because like even myself, I could barely get a review or anything out of myself because I'm like, I there's too much here to think about, like I got to
yeah,
sit on this for a long time. But when I end up getting in like a phase like I am kind of right now of watching a lot of movies sequentially, I can't not write something down, or else I just get a backlog, and it's like, oh, there's 5
yeah,
movies now that I have seen since writing my last thing down. And then it
hmm,
gets really daunting. And it's like, oh, a big task. And then all of a
yeah,
sudden, oh, there's a month gone by where I haven't written a letterboxd review. And all of a sudden, I've got 15 movies now that I need to write.
right,
Uh, so, what I think is very underutilized method of writing reviews is the edit review function. You know,
oh
you
yeah,
watch a movie, you give your thoughts on it. You have more thoughts later. You don't want to wait until you watch the movie another time to write them down somewhere. Just add a little like
edit
edit
point or whatever.
colon point at
Yeah,
the bottom of your review and be like, hey, I had some more thoughts later on.
sure, yeah,
And you can amend yourself and you can tack it on and give your full thoughts.
totally,
More people should do that, I think.
yeah,
I should do that more. I know for sure. There's so many movies I watched at VIF this year that I've had more thoughts about, and I want to go back and like
yeah.
make a little bit of an adjustment.
Yeah, something with, like, film festivals that makes total sense, where you're saying, like, you want to be able to, like, kind of keep track of all of your thoughts and feelings you had, especially if you're seeing so many things within such short succession of one another.
Yeah.
Because
Like you
then you're
can't
just
let
going to get
20
lost in the
movies
weeds.
sit over
Yeah,
a few
exactly.
days
Yeah,
when you're seeing them in a week.
totally. Yeah, totally. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. There's, like, a weird mental block in my head I have, I think, of the whole, like, editing a review, and, like, something I get hung up on, that I'm like, no, I put my thoughts down. I'll have to wait or something. But yeah, that's more of a personal thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean,
it,
changing your review is one thing. If you
right.
want to
Yeah.
like go and like remove stuff or do whatever, change
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
wording. But if you're just adding like an addendum at the bottom,
Yeah. We'll,
whatever.
yeah. Go
Everybody will
on.
know that you can add the date to it. So it's like,
Yeah.
you
Sure.
know how many days later it took.
Yeah. But, like, also, different movies and media and art require more out of the viewer. This is kind of essentially what you were saying earlier.
Hmm.
Like, they you have to, because there was a lot of discussion kind of around this film in particular, in regards to several just like facets of the film, like whether it be the subject matter of an old white man tackling like indigenous history, or if it's just the like simplistic like nature of the 3.5 hour runtime. Different movies will require different things out of its audience. And I think you kind of have to meet it halfway or meet it somewhere in the middle
Yeah.
of like like tempering your expectations of the film. Like if you're going to go into this movie being like, oh, I got to watch a 3.5 hour movie, then chances are you're probably going to feel that runtime.
Mindset is everything.
Exactly. Yeah. So like you want to, but then just also in terms of the subject matter as well, because like I mentioned it, but I think just briefly, really quickly, I think the subject matter is tackled very well, and Scorsese does it in a very
Yeah.
masterful way. But like just managing those expectations and not going in with that preconceived notion will do wonders for you. And then just on a very neutral level of any sort of subject matter, like the more surface level stuff of like maybe more genre or like action heavy movies and media versus more cerebral, more heavy topics will demand that you kind of spend more time with it and give it that extra effort in order for you to actually receive something out of it. You get what you put in,
Yep.
basically. Um, and that like goes for every sense of media and art like that. So yeah, this is a weird kind of general thoughts. I am in agreement. I really
It
liked
has
this movie
become
as
more
well.
of a like general thoughts about movies in
Yeah,
general
yeah,
than just this one.
yeah. It's just been a very like, especially like even after VIF and everything too, because that showcased a lot of different type of movies to me. Because I've
Yeah.
definitely been more skewing towards the genre side and the like standard North America Hollywood blockbuster scene, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, between like VIF and now this movie, it's just revealing a lot to me of like the way we engage with media. And like I also saw something, this is slightly tangential, but like uh media outlets pitting Killers of the Flower Moon against Taylor Swift's era's theatrical
God.
run. And it's like, well, they're two completely different things. Like, why are you saying this one's going to obviously outgross Killers of the Flower Moon? Like, because it's apples and race cars type of
Yeah,
thing.
it's
Like,
like Barbie and Oppenheimer all
yeah,
over again. Like one
yeah,
of them is a mass appeal kind of movie that's PG-13, and the
yeah,
other one is a an R-rated long historical drama. Like it's,
exactly.
you know, it's
Yeah,
not the same.
yeah. And it just like sucks that, I mean, that again, that just brings in a whole other kind of tangent that we could talk about. But
Yeah.
bringing it back to Killers of the Flower Moon, this was very impactful. It was almost a slow burn after the fact for me. Um, it took some ruminating. So maybe that's kind of where I'm going with this whole general thoughts thing is like, give it the effort, give it the time, and I'm sure you will be able to find something to take away from it, especially if you're not as frequent in these types of films
Yeah.
before. Um, yeah, that's kind of where I'm landing with this film. I've like, I mean, I already said it really in my letterbox review. Like, I so appreciate that we still have people and filmmakers like Scorsese around still today making these types of films, um, because just gives you a whole other level of appreciation for the medium,
Yeah.
and for storytelling. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. It's a very strong recommendation, I would say. And
I'd say it's probably one of the most important movies of the year for
yeah,
people to see. And also just,
totally.
I mean, historically,
Yeah.
and with the subject matter, that like if you're going to see any kind of potential Oscar movie,
Hmm.
this is probably the one so far. I'd say more so than Oppenheimer that you
Yeah, I
should
was just gonna
watch.
say, yeah, if you're gonna pick a like historical biopic esque 3 hour movie, then this one I think because like, I mean, like Oppenheimer was definitely more leaning towards the scope of it all,
Yeah,
a little bit. Um,
it was definitely flashier.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so yeah, I think that's kind of where we'll leave our general thoughts. I didn't really go uh, much into my expectations. I'm not super seasoned in Scorsese's filmography, so I had virtually no expectations going
Mm.
into this. So yeah, it's nothing super interesting in that department for me. So yeah, this will be the spoiler warning for Killers of the Flower Moon. If you don't want to know any details about the film going in, then pause this review here and come on back once you've seen it. So Matt, what are some highlights and lowlights you have of this film?
Highlights is anytime Lily Gladstone was on screen. Oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
she is gonna be getting some awards this year, I
Yeah.
think.
At the like very least, awards buzz is already
Yeah,
has
I
already
mean,
started.
she's gonna be nominated for every award season or every award show, whatever
Mm-hmm.
ceremony thing.
Yeah.
It's gonna be she's gonna be one of those people that, like, oh, Golden Globes gets this person, the Oscars gets this other person. She's gonna be one of those people that's taking home Best Actor, depending on what award it's gonna be, like what show it's from. Who
Mm-hmm.
knows? SAG, whatever the other fucking
Yeah.
ones are that I don't care really what they are,
We know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah.
but you know what I mean. Yeah, she's fantastic. I mean, the editing was on point. It the movie flew by, in my opinion. It felt like we were always jumping scene to scene just when we needed to. We were getting the right amount of breathing, but it also wasn't wasting time. It was gorgeous. The music was great.
Love the music.
Leo was really good. He was great at playing like a sort of sympathetic piece of shit, because it's very clear that he really does love this woman, but he can't get out from this kind of scheme that his
Manipulative.
uncle has
Yeah.
set him on. And I think he just doesn't realize it until it's too late, or he has too much family loyalty. There's so much that you can read into the motivations of these characters,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're the kind of person that, a lot of people I think are just going to say, oh, he's a piece of shit, fuck him, I don't care, I don't like that. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what makes it interesting. Like, I don't want to watch movies like this and be like totally necessarily cheering for the hero all the way to be like the champion of truth and love and honor all the
Well, it's
time,
just a more accurate depiction of humanity, right? Like we're not
Yeah,
just black and
and
white, good
because
and
it's a
evil.
fucking true story as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So, and it's like the care that Scorsese put into this, just so good. I honestly don't really have any lowlights other than maybe like some of the violence. I would have liked it to be maybe a little bit more visceral to really drive the point home, but at the same time, it kind of fits in with what the idea of the film is that all of this happened without anybody really knowing or caring. So the fact that the violence isn't flashy and it's sort of
It's so
more
matter of
subdued and
fact.
and
Yeah,
yeah, just presented in the way that, like, yep, this happened, yep, this guy got stabbed, yep, this guy got shot in the head, yep, the
yeah,
house blew up, but we don't see it happen. We just, we see the
yeah,
aftermath, we see the damage. um yeah, I think it was pretty fantastic. And that final scene when Scorsese walks up to the microphone and close up on the face, tears in the eyes, man, that is the kind of shit that sticks with you, for
yeah.
sure.
Well, like, and it's also because I think largely what my kind of highlights and lowlights for this film will be is kind of just recontextualizing all of the lowlights I might have had with it initially.
Yeah.
Um, but that was one of the things that, like, I was talking with Robin in the car on the way back from the theater of like, it sticks out initially as this like gimmicky thing of like, oh, the director put himself in his own movie again type thing. But like when you like stop and like listen to and like actively pay attention to what is happening, like he is delivering that message of this atrocity that happened, and like it just has a lot more. I can't articulate it now, but like I saw someone put it in really good perspective in their review, but it just has so much more weight to it than just this like gimmicky cameo for the director himself. Like he's delivering the message of the film, and it like packs that punch even harder for him to say that and not just have some nondescript character, you
Yeah.
know. um, there's a weight to it that is like really appreciated, and it just shows it's like a microcosm of his entire effort towards this whole story, of like the care and attention that he has for it. um, yeah, that was like one of the things uh, that I have come to fully appreciate now. Like even the radio show ending felt odd at first, but it makes total sense of like this true story is even still being on display, and so matter of fact, and just showing you the horrors of what happened to these people, and it's still just being like, it's almost like a meta commentary of like even Scorsese is like part of the machine and putting it on to be
Yeah.
shown for audiences, of like just trivializing it as entertainment for the masses. But then again, with that final message too, like stopping everything to like really hone in on why this was such an important story and how much of an effect it has had on those people. Um, it has sat with me much better now, kind of realizing how it plays into the whole film. Um, yeah. What's another thing I wanted to talk about? Do you have any other big noteworthy highlights you wanted to talk about
Um,
in more
I
depth?
think
I think
the finale, I think just in general, the way that they dealt with the last bit of the court case, that long take on Leo when he's giving his testimony was
yeah.
fantastic. And then with that final scene in the room when he's talking to his wife and he still lies to her face, and like I
Mhm.
think the way that they were able to cut that then and go into the whole stage production was so smart, because essentially the real story that we're watching here is him lying to his wife over
Mhm.
and over and over again, yet despite clearly caring for her and loving her. And when we get this final end of their story where he continues to lie about the or what, no, not penicillin,
Insulin.
insulin, despite the fact that she already fucking knows, because she went to the hospital, they did tests, they know that
Mhm.
no, you weren't getting insulin, he was poisoning you with something else.
Mhm.
And then when he still does that final lie, the story is effectively over. Like that is the main narrative that we are paying attention to here.
That's
So
true. Yeah.
then the fact that they are able to just give us all of the like factual stuff, like, okay, what happened now? And just give us all of the factual stuff that
Right.
we need to know to get the regular closure of like the grander story at
Mhm.
hand. I think that was such a good way to wrap it up, and
Mhm.
it's an amazing almost editing technique in itself of just be like, okay, that probably could have been another 45 minutes to a
Oh,
half hour
totally.
of
Yeah.
movie if they had just played it out narratively. But the
Mhm.
fact that they were able to think of that way to end the film was such a great idea from Scorsese, and
Yeah.
we need more stuff like that. We don't need this epilogue that drags on and on and on at the end of movies.
Mhm.
Just give it, I know it wouldn't fit in this kind of movie, but I personally, I'm a huge fan of when we get the ending credits and then freeze frame over top of characters, and then where are they now? Like, this character
Right.
went on and did this character's doing this now. Like,
Yeah.
I love that stuff. I
Yeah.
might be alone compared to the opposite opinion,
Mhm.
but I love that kind of thing. And I want more creative ways to give resolution to a story rather than just like slowing down and closing up every narrative thread one after another. Just find new ways to close things up at the end. and
Yeah,
that was a great one.
totally. Yeah, I agree. Um, you touched on DiCaprio's performance a little bit. That I think
Hmm.
felt uh, that was another low late I kind of had. I thought he was the weakest of like the big three. Um, and I would
Lily
still maybe
Gladstone, Leo, and Baba de Beppo.
yeah, Baba de Beppo. Um,
Baba de Beppo, I mean.
yeah, Brendan Fraser, obviously.
Oh yes,
um, I mean, I still kind of think
and
that
Jesse Plemons.
ultimately, yeah, Jesse Plemons. Um, it because initially it felt like because one of the bigger problems I had initially was that it felt repetitive some of the time. Like we kept seeing um, each family member be taken out, and then like you get one family member at a time. Like the instrumentation of their demise basically is being played out fully on screen. Um, and then you just go to the court case and everything and wrapping all of that up. It just kind of felt very uh, like similar to me. And I didn't see a ton of like range isn't the right word, but just he just felt very one note to me. Uh, Ernest felt that way. I was just more invested in like De Niro's performance of like all smiles on the front, but like absolutely sinister, like the devil incarnate
Yeah,
in the shadows and everything. And like most, I would say probably at least like 90-95% of his scenes, there's like he's always putting on that like positive side, but there's always that like sinister subtext underneath.
yeah,
There's like rarely ever a scene where he's like actively malicious or malignant towards someone else. Um, and that was just a more compelling performance to me. It just felt a lot like uh, sulky Leo a lot of the time.
yeah,
But like what you said about his internal struggle of like constantly being manipulated and not feeling like he can surmount the odds against him with being like too entrenched with the family business effectively. Uh, and that like that whole not courtroom scene, but like when he goes to see the like room of lawyers and like
yeah,
uh the jury members as well at his uncle's house is like really intense and overwhelming, and it's just like it's a inescapable feeling. But yeah, I don't know, something about it just felt one note to me at first.
I
um
think a lot of that could also be because his character has a flat arc, which isn't something that we see often with
right.
protagonists in movies like this. And especially when it's a long movie and you
Hmm.
don't have that progression over the course, it really does start to feel stagnant. But when I think that's something that will change upon rewatch when you come back a second time, knowing where it's going,
Right.
because really what you have here is a character who has like his set internal struggle, and it's sort of him against the world, and the world, his wife is asking him to change and his uncle is asking him to be a certain way, and he's stuck in this middle, and eventually he is just swallowed up by this lie that he has built.
Hmm.
And I think that's quite a fascinating way of designing a character.
Hmm.
And I think once you go back into it not expecting him to make like a big character change,
Right.
then the different pressures coming at him in different directions from different people, I think will have a stronger resonance. And I think that's where the movie really succeeds, is like Leo is this mirror in the middle that is sort of picking up all the different perspectives from everybody else.
Right.
And so it does kind of make him seem a little bit bland, but I feel like that's kind of by design as well.
Right.
And it he's supposed to be like, you can't really get a read on him,
Hmm.
because who, like, does he love his wife, or does he want to kill her, or does he want
Hmm.
to do this, is it all for the money, or blah blah blah. So I think that is something that with time maybe will be more realized by the general audience, because I have seen a lot of other people with that same complaint as well. I mean, I'm not
Hmm.
saying that it's incorrect, because definitely he does go pretty straight across for the whole
Right.
movie.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think given time, there will be more to uncover about his performance that maybe we just haven't realized yet. I think it's
Sure.
something that definitely needs to be absorbed more.
And I think like part of all of it really like can stem from like the preconceived notion and the expectations going into it, as subtle as they might be. Because like you see a like a I don't know what, there's a specific term for it, but like an acclaimed trailer gets put out for the movie where like critic reviews are in it and everything, and you see like Leo's best performance of his career, and it's like, okay, well then you expect some range or a huge revolutionary arc or something, right? um and yeah, you just kind of go in with those preconceived or like those expectations, um and you're not kind of ready maybe to pick up on those nuances the first time around. um but yeah, yeah, just sitting with it more, listening to you kind of dissect it more makes more and more sense to me in the context of how this film is kind of structured. um and yeah, a lot of this review is just going to be like me kind of
Oh,
sitting with how I felt. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's an interesting point. Um, other kind of more just kind of matter of fact highlights. Jesse Plemons, we mentioned him. I really liked him. He's
he's
great
good.
in everything he's in. Uh, I would have liked to have seen. I think that's just a different film though, of kind of focusing on the FBI agent, kind of uh, it's a more like procedural investigative drama of like finding out what's going on, uncovering the mystery of what
Yeah.
happened to all of these people. Um,
Unfortunately, they didn't really care enough to actually do it in real life. So there isn't really that movie to be had, I think.
Very true, very true. Um, and then like another thing I would have liked to have seen more is just sitting with Molly more and having that kind of more cerebral paranoia of like the townspeople uh, are becoming more and more untrustworthy, and it feels like her world is falling apart. Um, and like we kind of get to see more of her side of that story. Again, I don't know if that even exists, uh,
Who
or if
knows?
it's even possible, at least from a director like
Well, I
Scorsese.
mean,
And
it
like,
seems like for most of it, she was in a fucking borderline coma in
well,
bed.
also that, yeah,
So,
very true, very
yeah,
true.
but I will say, I was expecting a little bit more of her in it. She
Hmm.
gets sick pretty early on in the movie and then is just bedridden for like at least the whole back half.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Um,
mhm.
well, and it's also played. Uh, well, I mean, it is played so that De Niro and DiCaprio like are the focus, and we're watching like the protagonist effectively are the people who are doing the murdering and doing all the plotting and scheming. Um, so
Mhm.
yeah, again, I think it might just be a completely different film, and I've seen that in a couple like reviews, and the discussion surrounding this film is like overall, I think Scorsese knows his strengths and he plays to those strengths. Like he's not trying to pretend he's something he's not with this subject matter. He is able to, based off my limited experience of his filmography, he's able to kind of fit those themes and use the tools at his disposal that he's mastered already, and put it into this framework of this story very well. He's not like, because like a lot of the time people are just kind of boiling it down to the whole old white man like depicting indigenous atrocities type thing, right? And
Yeah, I
people are
think
probably,
that's a pretty weak criticism,
yeah,
I
people
think. And I say the
are
same thing about Avatar.
right. People,
Scorsese and James Cameron are not stopping indigenous filmmakers from telling these kind of
right.
stories. If anything, them telling these stories is creating more of a demand and more interest for other indigenous filmmakers to be able to do similar things.
Yeah.
Because if he wouldn't have made this, that would just be one less movie about indigenous people that was
Hmm.
made this year.
Well, and I
And we
think
want more of
people,
those stories.
absolutely. I hope like it, if nothing else, spurs that interest and that curiosity for more stories or maybe more perspectives on this story as well. Um, but I think the common thread people kind of run with is like just interpreting it or assuming that it's going to be an exploitative movie because of the like limited context of like the things I said before. Uh, but it's not. It's just
No.
like matter of fact not what it is. And like like I said, it's him playing to his strengths and just not not pretending to be what he's not.
Yeah.
So
And he said in like the featurette that was leading up to the film that about how closely they worked with people from the Osage
mhm,
community and how they wanted to be as honest and as truthful as they could be in representing this struggle. And I think they did a great job. I mean,
yeah,
people can get upset all they want about, oh, white guy telling this story, blah, blah, blah. But the community that it is about has literally endorsed this movie.
yeah,
So I don't think there's really any merit for other white people to be getting upset on their behalf,
yeah,
which in most cases, from what I've seen, is the case.
right. And I think that's it's just an important note to bring up. I think because uh, it's worth like shouting into the zeitgeist of everything of like that's not what this movie is, so try not to go into this movie if you haven't seen it with those expectations or preconceived notions, because I think you'll just set yourself up for failure,
Yeah.
and see what you want to see and therefore not try to engage with the film as much anymore. So just something I wanted to kind of keep in the discussion, because it's worth noting. Um, there's something else. Oh, the like because the language consultant for the film. There's a great interview with him, and he's talking about Scorsese's take on the whole film, and that like yeah, it is not from an Osage perspective, but it's his perspective, and he's doing his perspective very well, and he's doing it in a very respectful and honoring manner. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that's all I have to say about that.
All right. I think you said a lot.
uh, any other last highlights or lowlights? Mostly on my end.
I mean, I've already said everything is a highlight for me.
I think, yeah, yeah. I think in terms of going to see it on the big screen, where what are your thoughts with that, Matt?
I mean, I say go and support it. These kind of movies are the kind of movies that we should be seeing on the big screen. And this is the kind of movies that Scorsese was talking about when he made his whole Marvel whatever thing. We should be going to see movies that resonate with us about and teach us lessons and resonate with like humanity and
Yeah,
real emotion and human connectivity. Like this is the kind of stuff that we should be seeing in a room with other people and have that kind of shared experience. And this is what we should be giving money to.
hmm,
Like any of that other kind of bullshit pulp, whatever. Like you can't seriously tell me that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantum Mania looked better on a big screen when
hmm,
it looked like shit like that deserves to be watched on the smallest screen possible so that you can't see how bad it actually is.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so maybe go see it in IMAX if you got. I mean, it's got the whole big aspect ratio. It's going to be more picture. You're going to
Hmm.
not see that when you watch it on Apple TV. Uh, I say it's worth it.
Yeah. I would
Do it.
say, because like, I would say it is worth going to see for those reasons, to support uh not indie cinema, because this isn't indie cinema, but like to support non enfranchised films, um
Yes.
and to support good stories, with important subject matter, important stories, um and yeah, biggest screen possible. And I mean, get some comfy seating if possible, because like you are gonna have to sit for a while. But uh, as long as you have a comfy seat, that film should fly by just like it did for Matt. So, and I think that's probably where we're gonna leave it, because we could probably just sit here for another hour and kind of dissect anything and everything. But I think we'll leave it there. Matt, thank you so much for kind of letting me vent and just kind of vomit up all my thoughts and like
Of
ruminate
course.
with it on me. Um, this was a very uh, enlightening film as a reviewer, if I can call myself that, um, or just as a media consumer at the very least. So yeah, and I appreciate you coming onto the show to talk with me as always.
Anytime. It's always a
Um,
pleasure.
where can the people find you?
People can find me on Letterboxd, letterboxd.com/wisdom nugget and other things from there.
Excellent. We haven't done this mini segment in a while. Do you have any other recommendations of things you're watching, reading, playing, listening to as of late? It's okay if you don't.
um, I have been going back and watching through Scooby Doo. I mean, sorry, the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo,
Okay.
which is, I think, a very underrated entry into the Scooby Doo TV canon.
Hmm.
It's been sort of like my nightly episode watch on my little
It's a
TV.
series, like a
It's a
web series.
series.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 13 episode series from, I think, either the late 80s or the early 90s or so.
Hmm.
Um, Features Shaggy in the not often seen red shirt and blue
Oh right,
pants.
yeah, you were telling me
And
that.
then we got Scooby, Scrappy, Daphne with some crazy outfits, very 80s inspired, different hair that's kind of like Debbie Harry with bangs and stuff. And then Vincent Price plays a sort of a fictional version of himself as a warlock.
Hmm.
And there's a young, sort of maybe like Himalayan boy called Flim Flam that was based off of Short Round from
Oh,
uh,
okay. Interesting.
Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
And he, manages to make Scrappy Doo seem less horrible by comparison.
Oh,
So
okay.
Scrappy is no longer the most annoying character in this show. He talks like a 1950s greaser, and he's always trying to like sell stuff, and it's all, I just hate his character so much. But Vincent Price makes up for it. And then there's these other two
That's good.
ghost characters, because this is just one of the few IPs. No, I'm saying the wrong words. Few iterations of Scooby Doo where the ghosts are real. It's not people in masks.
Oh, okay.
So they like go up, and these two ghosts, one of them is called Weird and he looks like the cheese string guy. And one of them's called Bogle and he's kind of like shorter and chubbier and goofier.
Hmm.
They manage to track down or like lure Mystery Inc. to their secret hiding place and get them to open up the chest of demons, which is containing 13 of the most terrifying ghosts that have ever uh, seen the earth. So then
Cool.
they accidentally set them free. And then Vincent Price is like, "You fucking idiots, take this
Yeah.
chest and go get those fuckers and
Yeah.
put them back in the chest because you guys messed up." So then the story is them going around and having to, find all these different ghosts. And there's a lot of great little things that, like little bottle episodes and ideas that they have. Like one of them, there's like a ghost in a TV that sucks them into the movie they're watching, and then they have to be
Oh,
a part of the movie. They're watching like a Frankenstein thing, and then all of a sudden
yeah.
it's black and white. And there's
Oh,
another
that's
one
fun.
where there's like a bunch of like a trio of witches that have a spell book that they're trying to capture that another ghost wants. And
Hmm.
then there's like this little fluffy creature that's they're really cute, and it's just so much fun. It's so underrated. I wish more people would watch it. I wish it got more love, and I would recommend it.
Cool.
It's a lot
That
of fun.
sounds like a perfect spooky season
Yeah, it's perfect
watch.
Halloween. I watch it every October, and it unfortunately it got canceled halfway through due to like budget issues or something. So there
Hmm.
isn't actually like an ending to the series. Uh,
Oh, really?
which is really unfortunate. But
Damn.
it leaves a lot up to the imagination of where this thing could have gone. It had so much potential,
Cool.
and the episodes that we get are good enough to go back and rewatch over and over, even though it doesn't have any kind of closure. Because we just get like 13 great episodes, and it has no room to decline. So
Well, at least you get, because I'm assuming it's one of the ghosts per episode, right?
yes, but then there are some where other characters are the focus, and then at one point all the ghosts get let out near the end of the
Oh,
episodes that we have.
okay. So it's
So
like a
they
big
would have had to
climax scene.
restart essentially. I think they only have two ghosts in the chest by the time the episodes run out,
Oh,
but it's
gotcha.
good. So it
Cool.
would have been even great because then you would get like recurring ghosts that would keep coming back, and you get to learn
Yeah,
more. They all have a very strong personality and like a gimmick each time, and it's really really clever stuff.
that's awesome. The 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo.
Hmm.
I'll have to
What
check it
about
out.
you, Nick? What are you watching slash listening to
Well,
slash other things
my
right now?
recommendation would be, oh God. I mean, the most recent thing that I am playing is Spider-Man 2, the new PS5 game. It does feel a little like ironic to be recommending that during a review for a Martin Scorsese film, but
Maybe should have been like
um
Red Dead Redemption 2.
yeah, yeah, exactly. There you go. Um yeah, I mean, if you like Spider-Man, it's and have a PS5, definitely strong recommendation. Uh yeah. Um in terms of my plugs, you can find me wherever you're listening to or watching this episode of the No Score Review Show. Uh, in line with Matt's recommendation, it is the spooky season as of recording this episode. Me and Matt did a franchise in review for the Friday the 13th franchise.
Yes, we did.
Uh, and I also have a playlist of horror movie reviews up on the channel that include that franchise in review, as well as a review of the Conjuring universe and all of the other, well, most of the other horror films that have come out this year that I've seen. So you could go check that out if you're wanting some more Halloween spooky content. My latest review as of recording this as well is the first season of Ahsoka, if you like Star Wars. I have some more reviews that should hopefully be up before this episode debuts for the Vancouver International Film Festival. Still got to work on that. Matt's on that one as well, where we go over our favorites and least favorites of the festival. And there was another horror film review for Saw X. I have Shay on that one, and we discuss our
Mm.
thoughts on that film. And yeah, otherwise, you can find me on all the socials at No Score or at No Score Review. You can go check out my initial review for Killers of the Flower Moon on my Letterboxd at No Score, as well as all of my other written reviews. I am much more diligent in my reviews. There's way more reviews on there than what I upload to the YouTube channel and podcast services. So if you want to see more of my thoughts on more movies, then that's the place to go check that out. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching and listening. Matt, thank you once more for joining me.
Thank
And we'll
you.
see you all in the next review. Bye bye.